Good morning. Today is the second day of Av, the 20th of July, and we're continuing. Yesterday I said we might skip the whole thing. I decided not to, but we'll read it very, very quickly. We're not going to explain very much, because there's so much you can say about everything he says here, and won't finish. I do want to go back one sentence. That ועל דרך זה, it's one sentence back before להבין ביאור הדברים. ועל דרך זה קבעו בכל שנה מן הסתלקות לוחות הראשונות עד התגלות לוחות האחרונות, כמו שנדבר לעיל בעניין ההפטרות. We didn't stress this yesterday. I think we didn't get here. I'm not sure why we didn't say it. That really from 17th of Tammuz until Yom Kippur, which is the time period when we changed the haftaras, are really from the time that Moshe Rabbeinu broke the first set of luchos, the first tablets, until the time he came down with the second tablets. So this is a very important point. Because what are we talking about? When you think about what is it, how did the Arizal even, how does he even think? We saw this from the Arizal, this explanation of the Moichin going up and the Moichin coming down. It's simply the pshat of the story in the Torah. The pshat of the story was, I gave you one set of tablets, and you acted improperly, and I had to break them, and then I brought down a new set of tablets, which we know say something a little bit different, right? There's 88 letters difference between the first set and the second set. The first set had 620 letters, the second one has 708. And they're different. So they obviously, they're meant for the mindset before you sinned and then after you sinned. So there's a clear progression in the Torah that tells you that there are two different mindsets here. It's a very clear story. What the Arizal does is he says, just as this happened in the first year when they came out of Egypt, on the 17th of Tammuz, Moshe Rabbeinu broke the luchos. On the 10th of Tishrei, on Yom Kippur, he came down with the second set. The Arizal has a very important principle called "V'amim ha'ele nizkarim v'nasim, kevan shem nizkarim em nasim." That when things are recollected, meaning we go through the same cycle of days in the year, it's reenacted in some way. But here we're not breaking luchos, we're not breaking some tablets on 17th of Tammuz. So what are we doing? So says the Arizal, what's happening, you see in the haftaras, and this is amazing that they did this. It's almost impossible to understand that they did this. What?
That period was much more than 3 weeks.
No, it wasn't. It was 3 weeks, he's saying. It took 3 weeks for the new mindset for the old mindset to leave.
Yom Kippur.
Yeah, of course.
Long way off.
No, so that's exactly the process. 3 weeks of it ascending, 7 weeks of the emotions of the new mindset descending, and then 2 weeks of tshuva. And that's the process. So we didn't mention this, but this is grounded in the pshat of the Torah. This is not like some kind of far-flung theory that came out of nowhere. And you have to understand that everything in the Arizal's Kabbalah is this way. Everything is this way. He's simply learning what the Torah is saying. He's learning it at a much higher level, but he's learning what the Torah is saying. He's extrapolating, he's doing hafshata. He's abstracting out of the Torah principles that most people don't notice, most people don't see. But that's what he's doing. And, this is, I have to mention something about this because I was just watching an interview with someone I know, not well, but I know him well enough that if we meet on the street, we'll stand and talk for an hour, because we have things to talk about, but not because we talk to each other every day. His name is Rabbi Meriel Fassi, and he started out in Merkaz Arav, and then he started learning with someone who the French considered to be very, one of their deepest rabbis. His name was Yehudah Ashkenazi, but everybody called him by his nickname, which was Manitou. And he, when he was something like 19, Meir, when it was like 19, he went to Manitou and he said to him, I want to learn Kabbalah with you. So he taught him. He had all kinds of stipulations and conditions, whatever. He fulfilled them, and then they started learning. And why am I telling you this whole story? Because I was watching 2 movies about Manitou lately. Baruch Hashem, people made, they were very well-made documentaries about him. And he, from his mother's side, is a direct descendant of Yosef ibn Tabul. And Yosef ibn Tabul was a Talmud of the Ari who was on par with Rav Chaim Vital. You know that once you start learning something, you discover that the familiar story is very lacking. It's missing a lot of pieces. And this guy, Yosef ibn Tabul, he wrote even more than Rav Chaim Vital. But because everybody preferred Rav Chaim Vital's writing, and Rav Chaim Vital had this, approbation from the Arizal to write, so his writing was never published. But we have it. We have all of it. Volumes and volumes of handwritten books with very interesting takes on what the Ari is doing, and explanations of also that you won't find in Rav Chaim Vital's writing. And by him, and he went to North Africa. Rav Chaim Vital went back up to Chalib, to Damascus, the Syria area. But he went to North Africa, and this family lived in Algiers the whole time. And their direction was more abstracting out, bringing back the understanding from the Torah about what the Arizal is writing about. By Rav Chaim Vital, it's almost like an asmachta, what we call in Talmud. It's not, the connection to the Torah is not so clear. Yeah, it's almost like, there's this verse and this is where it comes from, but you can't understand why in the world this is this way. Chasidus actually goes a lot more like Yosef ibn Tabul, in the same direction. So it's just interesting. So why there's a lot more in the documentary about his relationship with them, how they learned, and at some point he asked him, should I go learn philosophy? He said, no, just don't learn philosophy. That's the worst. But the truth is that what he was teaching him was actually very, very similar in many ways. In any case, להבין ביאור הדברים הנ"ל. So let's do the mashal quickly in 8 minutes, right? יש להקדים על פי משל. So we have to understand the parable מן השפעת שכל הרב לתלמידו, of how a teacher influences his student. שהוא המשל היותר מכוון לעניין השפעת אלוקות בעולמות, כמובן בספר אור תורה מהמגיד נשמתו עדן, which is the best parable for understanding how God gives his effluence to the world. He's like a teacher teaching his student. And this, he says, כמובן בספר אור תורה מהמגיד. He says this is from the Magid. Now I searched all of Or Torah, I couldn't find it. And there's no footnote here, because they also couldn't find it. But apparently, either it's a piece we're missing or something like that, or I just don't know how to find it. Nobody knows how to find it. But apparently this whole idea that this is the best parable for understanding the relationship between God and the world, and not Shir Shirim, is from the Magid already. Okay. In any case, דהנה רב גדול המשפיע שכל לתלמידו, הנה בכל דרוש פרטי וכלול מפרצוף שלם 10 ספירות. Every great teacher who teaches his student, whatever he teaches him, it's really built up. You could analyze it as a whole partzuf, as a whole model containing 10 ספירות. Meaning, שיש השכלת הדרוש והחידוש שבו והמידות של המשפיע, דהיינו דברים היוצאים מן הלב. Meaning, there is the essence of what it is, that would be like the crown. There is the chidush in it, the novelty in it, that would be like the intellect. Or you could say the askala would be the bina, and chidush would be the chokhmah. There's different ways of understanding this. But more importantly, it has to be things that come out of the heart. So it includes the emotions of the teacher. So somebody who goes in and says this is the big difference between Torah and between knowledge, regular secular knowledge. Regular secular knowledge is hindered if there's emotion involved. But by Torah there has to be emotion involved. There has to be things that come out of the heart, enter the heart, and affect the heart. So that is one of the big differences. But there's also emotions in the essence of the what this is coming to teach.
You skipped a sentence.
No.
The Hainu.
I read it. בעצם כמו ההוראה שיוצא מהחידוש כמו כשר פסול וכיוצא. So it says there's also the ramifications, the practical ramifications that come out of what you're teaching. או התפעלות אהבה ויראה להשם היוצא מנושא של הדרוש. Or there might be the excitement, that one should be excited and awakened in love and fear of God, which comes out of this teaching. וכן דברי מוסר של הדרוש, שהוא הנהי. So now we have a whole, he's explaining the whole emotional setting here. That it's not just emotions in and of themselves, it's emotions of the mind even. וכן דברי מוסר של הדרוש הוא הנהי, היינו ההסכם לפועל ממש להיות סור מרע ועשה טוב. And there's also the practical changes that come out of the teaching, which means that the person comes to a state of refraining from evil and doing good. ולכן בריבוי השומעים של הדרוש כל אחד מקבל לפי ערך הכלי שלו, ולכן אין הכל מקבלים בשווה. And therefore, if you have a number of students sitting before you, each one of them receives based on what his vessel is like. And therefore, they don't all understand the same thing. That's when it's in Torah. They can't all understand the same thing, because it depends on the vessel that they have. Again, there's tons to say about this, but we're doing this quickly. אבל התלמיד הנקרא מובהק, but the dedicated student, the unique, special student that this teacher has, שהוא חלל ריקן ממש, whose all his vessels are empty. He's ready to receive the teaching from the crown all the way down to the kingdom. All the sfirot he's ready to receive. וממנו לא נאבדה אפילו תיבה אחת מדברי רבו, and he doesn't lose even a single word. What he means here by a single word is not the words themselves. Everybody can understand what he said. You could also put it on tape. What he means is that you're affected, a full effect, by the teacher. Everything, from the teacher's super consciousness all the way down to his actions. הנה מכל דרוש פרטי הוא נבנה בפרצוף שלם. This student is built entirely from top to bottom. His whole model of his self changes when he learns. שנולדים אצלו מוחין חדשים והשכלה חדשה, הוא מתפלל באהבה ויראה מחדש בכל דרוש פרטי. וכן הנהי נעשה אצלו מכל דרוש פרטי, סדר עבודה והנהגה חדשה, מלא הוא מקבל תענוג מאוד מדברי רבו. So he's affected from the top to the bottom, all the way from the pleasure in the crown, to his will, to his understanding, to his emotions, to his actions. Everything is changed by what he hears. What does this mean? Now you understand what it means that somebody becomes like his teacher after 40 years. Why? Because he's heard him not in the sense of, somebody would ask, how could you become your teacher after 40 years if all you heard was what your teacher taught you? Like the seichel, the understanding. He says, no, it's really from top to bottom. Everything. You incorporate everything. His excitement about God, his excitement about Torah, his love for Hashem, his fear of Hashem. Everything comes out in what he's teaching. If you don't hear it, then you're not a Talmid Muvhak. You haven't opened your vessels yet. You haven't vacated them so that they can contain the light that's coming from the teacher. Right? So, והנה רואים שגם שהמשפיע בשעה שהוא דורש לפני פנדו כבר מסודר אצלו העניין במחשבתו, כמו שכתוב, אז ראה ויספרה, הכינה, I'm reading the whole verse now from Eov, הכינה וגם חקרה, ויאמר לאדם, הן יראת עדני היא חוכמה וסור מרע בינה. So there are these verses that say that even though when he's learning, when he's teaching, the teacher's teaching, he's thought out everything to begin with. He's gone over the material 100 times already. He has it fully laid out. And really there's two levels here that are important. There's these verses in Eov in chapter 28. And only then, it's like Hashem who went over it a number of times, and only then did he tell us the Torah. So on and so forth. Even though there's no even though here. It's just telling us in this whole section, and we'll finish with this today. We didn't finish the whole parable. We still have one more paragraph to finish it. So there's a long preparation process. And again, in Shar Yuchud, he goes into this in great detail. He was just saying there's two levels of preparation, two sets of preparation. The reason I said even though is that once the teacher has arranged it, thought it out, completed it, that's only then does he teach it. Now, even though everything's thought out, everything's complete, the teacher, from his point of view, has finished the topic. He has nothing more to add. He's prepared everything there is. When he comes to stand before the student, something happens. And that's what we'll see tomorrow.